The string quartet played softly in the background as I watched my ex-husband Michael strut across my sister's wedding reception like he owned the place. 8 months since our divorce, and he still had that same arrogant swagger, that same self-satisfied smirk that used to make my heart flutter, but now just made my stomach turn. My name is Katherine Wells, and at 35, I was watching the man who betrayed me flaunt his new engagement ring while secretly planning to use my inheritance to fund his wedding. The irony would have been laughable if it hadn't made me so angry. "You're staring," my sister Rachel whispered, appearing beside me in her wedding dress. "Don't let him ruin my day." I forced a smile. "Sorry, I just can't believe you invited him," Mom insisted. "You know how she is about keeping up appearances." Rachel squeezed my hand. "But seriously, what's going on?" "You've got that look." That look. The one I'd worn when I discovered Michael's affair with Jessica, his much younger assistant. The one that meant I knew something others didn't. "He thinks he's clever," I said quietly, watching Michael pour champagne for Jessica, who was practically draped over him. "He thinks he's won." 2 weeks ago, I'd received a call from my bank about suspicious activity on the account holding my inheritance from Grandma Rose. The beach house in Martha's Vineyard had been in our family for generations, and when Grandma passed last year, she left it to me along with a significant sum to maintain it. The banker's voice had been concerned. "Mrs. Wells, someone attempted to access the property's equity line of credit. We blocked it since you're the sole owner, but I thought you should know." I knew immediately who was behind it. Michael had always coveted that house, always talked about what he'd do with it if it were his. During our marriage, he tried repeatedly to convince me to add his name to the deed. "It's just practical," he'd say. "What if something happens to you?" But Grandma Rose had been explicit in her will. The house was mine alone, never to be included in any marital assets. She'd seen something in Michael that I'd been too blind to notice. Now, watching him whisper something in Jessica's ear that made her giggle, I thought about the documentation I'd gathered. The traced attempts to access my accounts. The forged signatures. The emails I'd recovered showing his plans to use my inheritance to fund his dream wedding to Jessica. He thought he was being subtle. But subtlety had never been Michael's strong suit. That's how I'd caught him with Jessica in the first place. Lipstick on his collar like some cliché from a bad movie. "Katie." His voice boomed across the reception hall, making me wince. Only he had ever called me Katie, even after I'd asked him not to. "Come meet some people." I plastered on my best society smile and walked over. Michael stood with Jessica and an older couple I didn't recognize. "Mr. and Mrs. Davidson, this is my ex-wife, Katie," he said, emphasizing the ex with obvious satisfaction. "She's the bride's sister." "Lovely to meet you," Mrs. Davidson said, though her eyes held that mixture of pity and curiosity that divorced women often face at social events. "Katie here just inherited a beautiful beach house," Michael continued, his voice dripping with false casualness. "Perfect for a summer wedding, wouldn't you say, Jess?" Jessica giggled, flashing her enormous engagement ring. "Oh, honey, are you thinking what I'm thinking?" I took a slow sip of champagne, watching them perform their little show. They thought they were being clever, dropping hints about their plans for my property. If only they knew. "Actually," I said sweetly, "I've been meaning to talk to you about the house, Michael. Perhaps we could step outside for a moment?" His smile faltered slightly, but he followed me to the terrace. The October air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and impending winter. "What's this about?" he asked, his tone less confident now that we were alone. I pulled my phone from my clutch and pulled up the bank statement. "Would you like to explain why you tried to access my equity line of credit?" His face darkened. "Going through my private financial matters? That's low, Katie." "Not as low as forging my signature," I countered, watching his expression carefully. "Or trying to steal my inheritance to pay for your wedding to the woman you cheated with." He laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Steal? Please, that house should have been half mine anyway. 10 years of marriage and your grandmother still didn't trust me with it." Turns out Grandma Rose was a better judge of character than I was. "You know what?" He pulled out his own phone, thumbing through it before showing me a screen. "I already took care of it. Transferred the money last week. What's done is done." I stared at the bank statement he was showing me, my heart racing despite knowing what I did. The transfer was there, $250,000 moved from what appeared to be the house's equity account to his personal one. See, he smirked, pocketing his phone. The perfect amount for the perfect wedding. You should be happy for us, Katie. Jessica and I, we're soulmates. What we had, it was just practice. I took another sip of champagne, letting the moment stretch out. You really should have checked the property records more carefully, Michael. His smirk faltered. What are you talking about? That account you accessed? It's not connected to the house. It's an old joint account I kept active, knowing you'd try something like this. The house and its equity are in a completely separate trust, one you can't touch. The color drained from his face. You're lying. Am I? Check the county records. Better yet, check with your bank on Monday. That transfer you're so proud of? It's going to bounce. Hard. You set me up, he whispered, realization dawning. No, Michael, you set yourself up. I just made sure there was a record of it. You bitch, he hissed, stepping closer. You think you're so clever. Everything okay out here? Rachel's voice cut through the tension. She stood in the doorway, concern evident on her face. Perfect, I said, stepping away from Michael. Just catching up with old friends. I walked back into the reception, leaving him standing there seething. But this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Michael's transfer had indeed bounced, triggering fraud alerts at multiple banks. His attempt to access my equity line had been flagged as attempted mortgage fraud. Everything was unraveling exactly as I planned. But Michael wasn't going down without a fight. By noon, he was at my door. You have to fix this, he demanded as soon as I opened it. The banks are freezing my accounts. Jessica's father is asking questions about the wedding finances. I leaned against the doorframe, enjoying his panic. Fix what? You tried to steal from me, Michael. Actions have consequences. It wasn't stealing, he protested. That house should have been part of our marital assets. You're the one who hid it in a trust. Grandma Rose put it in a trust, not me, because she saw right through you. His face twisted with rage. You think you've won? I still have copies of all your finances from when we were married, things that wouldn't look good if they came to light. I smiled, reaching for the folder I kept by the door for just this moment. You mean these? Michael stared at the folder in my hands, his bravado faltering. Inside were all the documents he thought he could use against me: tax returns, bank statements, investment records. But there was something else too, evidence of his own financial misconduct during our marriage. You know what I found when I started digging? I asked, opening the folder. Years of suspicious transfers, money moved between accounts right before our divorce. Investments made in Jessica's name while we were still married. He tried to snatch the folder, but I pulled it back. Those are private. Private like my grandmother's house. Private like my inheritance that you tried to steal. His jaw clenched. What do you want? I want you to face consequences for once in your life, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. No more charm, no more lies, no more manipulating your way out of trouble. You'll destroy everything, he said, desperation creeping into his tone. The wedding, my reputation. Your reputation. I laughed. You mean the carefully crafted image of the successful investment banker? The devoted fiancé? How long before Jessica's father, the retired judge, finds out how you're really funding his daughter's dream wedding? Michael's face paled. Judge Harrison was old money, the kind that cared deeply about reputation and propriety. Finding out his future son-in-law had attempted mortgage fraud would end more than just wedding plans. Katherine, please, he said, using my full name for the first time in years. We can work something out. Like you worked things out with Jessica while we were still married. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I remembered from whenever he felt cornered. What if I pay it back? All of it, with interest. This isn't about money, I said quietly. It's about truth. About facing what you've done. Just then, a car pulled into my driveway. Jessica stepped out, her face streaked with tears. Michael? Her voice cracked. Why are the caterers calling me about bounced checks? Why is Daddy asking about fraud alerts? I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Perfect timing, I said, holding up the folder. We were just discussing your wedding finances. The next hour was a blur of revelations. I laid out everything: the attempted theft, the forged documents, the years of financial deception. Jessica's face went from confusion to horror to rage. You told me the money was from your investments, she whispered, staring at Michael. You said you've been saving for years. Baby, I can explain. Explain what? She cut him off. How you tried to steal from your ex-wife to pay for our wedding. How you lied to me, to Daddy, to everyone. She turned to me, her mascara running. Did you know he's been pressuring me to postpone signing the prenup? Said it was just a formality we could handle after the wedding? I hadn't known that, but it fit perfectly with everything else. Michael tried to reach for her, but she jerked away. Don't touch me, don't you dare touch me. She ran back to her car, gravel spraying as she sped away. Michael stood there, watching her leave, his perfect world crumbling around him. Happy now, he spat at me. No, I said honestly, but at least the truth is out. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Judge Harrison, livid at the attempted fraud and deception, made sure Michael's actions became known throughout their social circle. The prestigious investment firm where he worked, already wary of scandal, asked for his resignation. Jessica returned the engagement ring via courier, along with a letter from her father's lawyer warning Michael to stay away from his daughter. But the real consequences came from the banking regulators. My careful documentation of Michael's attempted fraud triggered investigations into his professional dealings. Years of questionable transactions came to light. A week after everything exploded, Rachel called me. Have you seen the news? She asked without preamble. I pulled up the local business journal's website. There it was. Prominent banker under investigation for fraud and financial misconduct. Are you okay? Rachel's voice was soft with concern. I thought about it for a moment. Was I okay? The man I had once loved, who I'd built a life with, was facing criminal charges. His reputation was destroyed, his future uncertain. I'm better than okay, I realized. I'm free. The beach house stood exactly as Grandma Rose had left it. Weathered shingles and worn floorboards holding decades of family memories. I spent a weekend there, walking the familiar rooms, remembering summers spent listening to her stories. Never let anyone take what's yours, she used to say, looking out at the ocean. Not your property, not your dignity, not your truth. I finally understood what she meant. Spring came, bringing with it renewal and change. Michael pleaded guilty to reduced charges, accepting a sentence that included restitution and probation. Jessica married a junior partner at her father's law firm. Life moved on. I hired contractors to restore the beach house, updating it while preserving its character. As I oversaw the renovations, I thought about legacies, not just of property, but of strength and wisdom. One evening, sorting through old papers in Grandma's study, I found a letter she'd written to me before she died. My dearest Katherine, if you're reading this, you've probably already discovered why I put the house in a trust. I saw in Michael what you couldn't or wouldn't see. A man who measured his worth by what he owned, who saw relationships as transactions. But you, my darling girl, you've always been stronger than you knew, strong enough to face hard truths, to stand up for yourself, to rebuild when necessary. This house isn't just walls and windows. It's proof that some things can't be bought or stolen. They have to be earned, cherished, protected. Take care of it and let it take care of you. All my love, Grandma Rose. I wiped away tears, folding the letter carefully. She had known, maybe not the specifics, but she had known what might come. That summer, I hosted a family reunion at the beach house. Rachel brought her new baby, cousins flew in from across the country, and for the first time in years, the old rooms rang with laughter and love. Standing on the porch watching the sunset, Rachel joined me with her sleeping daughter in her arms. You did the right thing, she said quietly, exposing Michael, protecting what's yours. Grandma would be proud. I smiled, thinking of the letter upstairs. She already was. The waves crashed against the shore, constant and unchanging. Like the truth, I thought. You can try to hide it, deny it, run from it, but eventually it finds its way to the surface. Michael had tried to take what wasn't his, thinking money and charm could buy anything. But some things, integrity, justice, self-respect, those have to be earned. And once you find them, you have to protect them, just like Grandma Rose protected this house for me. My phone buzzed. A text from my lawyer confirming the last of Michael's restitution payments had been processed. I deleted it without responding. That chapter was closed. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Inside, I could hear my family's voices, the next generation making memories in these old rooms. This was my inheritance, not just the house, but the strength to protect what matters, the wisdom to know what's truly valuable, the courage to stand up for what's right. And that, I realized, was worth more than anything Michael had ever tried to steal.